Well, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the School Committee of the Town of Foxborough to order. Today, October 21st, 2013. Mrs. Adair is unable to be with us tonight, so I am filling in for Mrs. Adair, and also Mr. Yukna is not able to be with us. He had a family situation he had to attend to, so we wish him the best, and we will miss him tonight. Our agenda, as always, will start with any visitors, followed by approval of minutes, and then teaching and learning highlights, in which will feature a review of the October 11th Professional Development Day that took place, that Dr. Berdos will lead us through, and then highlight the seminar for Massachusetts music educators that Ms. Tedoldi will present, I believe, and I don't know if Mr. Piper's coming. Not tonight. Okay. Thank you, Cammie. We'll follow that with a review of the 2013 MCAS results, Ms. Spinelli and Dr. Berdos. We'll then have a discussion about the superintendent's goals for 2013-2014 with Ms. Spinelli. The next topic will be the Foxborough Public Schools growth plan for STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, and business technical education that Ms. Spinelli will lead us in. We'll review the October 1st enrollment update, and then we will take any other matters. So, do we have any visitors joining us that would like to be recognized at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes before us. We have some executive session meeting minutes from June 17th and some regular meeting minutes from the October 7th regular meeting. Any comments about the June 17th?
No, I make a motion that we accept them as rendered.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? 4-0, thank you.
And I make a motion also that we release them.
Then I'll second that as well.
Any discussion? All in favor? 4-0, thank you. Okay, October 7th, regular meeting minutes. If everyone's had a chance to review them, I'll accept a motion to approve the October 7th.
I gave a copy to Janet with a minor change. It was just with gratitude for the acceptance.
Okay,
That was the only change.
okay. So you want a
I
motion
would like to motion
approve as amended?
to approve as amended.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? 4-0.
Can you just, for my own purposes, tell me where the amended section is?
Oh, just under the two donations on the bottom of the first page and top of the second, the church.
Yes, right.
And it was just with gratitude.
Oh,
because
good.
I know that we.
I remember Steve actually said that during the meeting, which was a terrific touch, so we'll get that, we'll get that recorded appropriately.
We
Thank
are
you.
grateful.
Yep, we always are, aren't we?
Got it.
Oh, yes, very great.
Okay.
All right, teaching and learning highlights, October 11th, Professional Development Day. Dr. Berdos.
All right, well, on that Friday, we had a lot going on, and the theme really for the day was focusing our work for student learning. We have a lot of initiatives that have begun in the last year or two, and we're really digging down into those initiatives. And the day itself was filled with people coming into the district from outside of our district, some of ours leaving. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things, but then turn it over to Cammie Tedoldi to speak about one of the ones that we really want to highlight, which is the music program. So speaking from elementary up, elementary focused on math. So you heard recently of our curriculum review and some of the professional development recommendations. So we really focused in the area of math with elementary together, and then at the middle and high school as well. In the middle school, a particular area that we've implemented this year is the Readers Writers Workshop, and spent a lot of time focusing on authentic literacy. So there was a lot of work done with common assessments and writing prompts, and really looking at that Reader Writers Workshop. and then taking that to the high school level where all high school teachers participated in a workshop that was presented by Walter Mitchell that was writing across the curriculum with the Common Core state standards, which really is focusing on the authentic literacy. So that was nice to have a colleague step forward and present to the entire high school. That takes a lot of planning and a lot of guts in order to do that, really, to be quite honest. And two of our activities for the day, which were sponsored by LSDO, which is our local staff development opportunities, was for our nurses and for our music department. As an example, our nurses, they left the district and were with nurses from many other districts around this area, and had a presentation from Boston's Children's Hospital that really looked at depression in youth and adults and traumatic brain injury. So it's nice to be able to have something very specific and targeted, and all of our nurses participated in that. So when we have those opportunities for those low incidence groups to have something that's very targeted, it really makes for great professional development and growth for the day. And the music is no exception. So for a number of years now, we have had other districts come to us because of our fabulous music program and our fabulous music educators. And I'm going to invite Cami Tadoli to come forward. She has some of the students with us that really made the day spectacular for music educators from around, and we'd like to highlight that one in specific.
So if you could just pull your chairs up to the microphone, would be great.
Amy, excuse me, please. As they're getting assembled, there was one other thing on your overview that I noticed that I wanted to mention, and I see that our 2-minute tip guys who visited us at our last meeting
Yes.
also did a presentation for the wellness staff.
Did.
And it just, I think, again, speaks to their enthusiasm and their dedication to the subject matter that they gave their day off from school up to do
Yes.
professional development day with our wellness staff.
We're
That
taking
being
their
said,
talents.
let's move on to the
We're
music.
taking their talents and infiltrating them.
Yes,
They're like
exactly.
stealth.
That was just one other thing that I said, wow, we've just got great
Isn't
people
that great?
doing
And
this.
they helped also to form their plans with the wellness staff as to
Yes.
how they're going to make a difference with the younger kids. So we've really got them going with a lot of different connections that I'm pretty proud of. So you may be hearing more about them. So Cami, just to give you a little bit of background, Cami did all of our organizational work for this
Mr. Piper, yeah.
with Mr. Piper, Cami and Dave Piper. When we started this 5 years ago, all the organizational work was really done by Bill Rowell, who's the professor emeritus at UMass Amherst and pretty famous in the music education business. And he's last year just couldn't continue to do. He's been retired, that's why he's emeritus. But this is something that we started 5 years ago with the hopes that we would keep it as a tradition. And now it is such a wonderful tradition that people in other districts ask for it all the time. So as superintendent, sometimes I'm in other places, and people will say, "Are you still having that music thing?" Because we are. So this has
That
really
music
become
thing.
much more than we hoped for, or maybe everything we hoped for. So Cam, if you could just give us an overview of what the day was and why we have fabulous students here, because I'm sure there are people at home thinking, well, professional development day for teachers, kids are home sleeping in. What's the connection?
They're very important. So, as Debbie said, this day, was created really for music teachers to talk about the art of making music and the art of the profession and the creative spirit that goes along with that. So if you want to take a look at this will show you some of the sessions that we have. And you'll notice that they're not really technique-based. They're very, for example, techniques to develop your powers of imagination. So very broad things to get the juices flowing. So anyway, that's the purpose of the day. The day starts off with a roundtable discussion with all the teachers, the clinicians joining together to speak about creativity and music education. We then break out into a couple of sessions. And then, so you can just see those there. But for the music education community, it's a smaller community within a school district, so it's really nice to have that opportunity to collaborate with music teachers from around the state. And this day has become almost like a ritual and like a sanctuary for music teachers to really come to and just have an opportunity to talk and share with each other. So that, for the music ed community, it's really special. A couple of quotes from the feedback sheets that we have I just would like to share with you. all of them were very much appreciative. Thank you. This day was very inspirational for us. One person said, "I wish I could have attended more of the workshops. I guess you'll just have to have more professional days." We said, "Okay." One of them was a first-time attendee and said that they will be attending every year now that I know about it. This is a fabulous opportunity for music ed professional development, and we thank you for including educators outside of LSDO. And then finally, the part that ties in our students, which really makes this day so meaningful for the music education's community, this person said, "First off, bravo, this was a great day. Ted and George were engaging, realistic, and very clear. Thank you," in capitals, "for involving the kids. It lends to seeing things in action and made it all more impactful. Great job." So this leads us to our students. So it's a really mutual benefit that we get. We hire, we bring in these really outstanding clinicians that are nationally known that get to come in, and we ask our students to join us as lab groups. And this year we used the string orchestra. We also used some middle school band students, and the junior jazz band, and some of the other high school band students joined us. And first of all, bravo to them. I think it speaks highly to our program that our students are willing to come in on their day off. That's a Friday before a long weekend, and to come and do that, because they know that they're going to get a really outstanding experience. And I also think this is really interesting, but we had 63 educators join us that day. And that means the next day that they went back to school, thousands of students across the state of Massachusetts were directly impacted by their efforts. So that's huge. It goes beyond just us, and it really spreads. And then if you think about it, it spreads for years. This knowledge is, just flowing through, so it's really fantastic. So I asked them to speak about, what did you take away from the day, and what was it like for you to be among teachers while they're learning?
So when you take a turn, tell us your name and what grade you're in, what class you're in for freshmen.
Okay, I'll start. Hi, my name's Jennifer. I am a senior, and I thought that the most important part about having all the clinicians there was it's important for students to be able to see that learning never ends. I mean, you continuously are learning, and once you become an adult and you have your own job and everything, you still have to learn new skills, and those new skills, like seeing them as a student, it made me feel more comfortable with learning in general, just learning new things. It's like, it's not just for young people, it's for all types of people.
My name's Sally. I'm a senior. I think that not only the teachers benefited, but we also benefited from it, and just kind of getting a different perspective, and also getting the opportunity to work with someone that is so high in that field was just like a really cool opportunity, and I think that we all really gained a lot from it just from a few hours.
I'm Kim, and I'm also a senior. I think one of the most important things that we did that day was it was fun for us. And I say that, and you think, oh, we laughed about it, and we really did. We walked away, and I remember talking mostly with these guys, but with other people, that was a lot of fun. And I think that was really cool, because I learned so much that day, and I went home and I told my parents about it. I was like, I had so much fun today. And it was really cool to see Miss Todoldi up there, and I don't think I've ever had the experience of seeing my teacher learn, and it was very cool to see my teacher learn and what that could do for me. So I honestly, it's something I'll remember, but it's also, that day it was fun and it was inspirational.
My name's Alexa, and I'm a senior. I took many different things from this, and it was very, different things. One of them was I felt more connected with Miss Sidoldi, not only as a teacher, but also as a conductor. Because the guest clinician that we had, she mostly focused on the conducting and how to bring in the orchestra better. And I definitely felt it right away. It was an instant change. And not only with Miss Sidoldi, but also the teachers that came, you felt a change from when they were stressed out from when they just started. And they relaxed more with Rachel Lauber, who was the guest clinician, and it was amazing for me to see, because I want to go into music as a college degree and to see how a change can be so quickly done, even in like a few hours, was amazing for me to realize. That was a great opportunity to play.
I'm Julia. I'm also a senior. Two of kind of like the biggest things that I took away from the day was one being that it was really like kind of eye-opening to be able to see my teacher who I've been with for the past 4 years just learning something completely new. And it was really interesting because when we play in front of her individually or anything like that, we're like so nervous and like, oh, what if we mess up? What if we make a mistake? But it was really great, not even just to watch Mr. Doley, but to watch the other teachers too, kind of like almost putting us on the same level for a minute. And watching them be just as nervous to learn in front of us as we are to learn in front of her. So it was
They
really
were probably more nervous.
yeah,
I'm serious.
but that was just, it was really inspirational to watch our teacher feel comfortable enough to do that in front of us and just kind of brought us closer to her. And in addition to that, it was also a really emotional day. Like people always say like, oh, music is such an emotional experience, but it's hard to take that seriously from a bunch of high school students. They're like, oh, they're just in the band or the orchestra. But like working with Rachel Lauber and telling her to asking us to paint a picture with the music you're playing. Like that's not something we get the opportunity to be so creative. Like in math class, add 2 + 2. But it was really great just to be able to be ourselves and comfortable in front of a group of educators from all over the state. It was just a really unique opportunity.
So I think this speaks for itself in that, I mean, it's the lessons learned on both ends were invaluable, and as I said, will trickle down for generations of students and music teachers. So appreciate your support and having us have here.
Maybe I could read like who the clinicians were in case people watching at home.
Oh,
I know you have in your packet.
yeah, I'm absolutely.
So Dr. Fred Harris is the conductor of the Wind Ensemble, Jazz Ensemble at MIT. And actually Fred's been with us since the inception of this day. Dr. Rachel Lauber, who's at Eastman Music Community School, Orchestra Studies and Conducting Studies in Rochester, New York. Our own Ted Haggerty, our own George Murphy, our own Cami Tadoli, Mike Driscoll, who's a music educator in the Brookline, Mass. Public Schools. And I can relate to your being nervous because I usually just welcome people, just pretty easy, just smile and say welcome, love your day here in Foxborough. This is the first year that people asked/forced me to be on the panel, the morning panel, and I have to say, I was intimidated by these people as well. I even emailed Cami and Fred Harris, like, I'm totally out of my league. And I was nervous, like I had a test that I hadn't quite studied enough for, but what was really great about it is how do you define success in music education? And we talked a lot about that in the panel session. And then as we were adjourning from the panel session to go into the breakout sessions where they had choice, one of the audience members was walking with me and all the students were filing in, the high school students, the middle school students going to the room where they were going to help educators learn. And I said, oh, here it is right here. This is one of the ways you define success, when kids are willing to give up their day to come and help their teachers learn and grow together in community. And so it really made me think, a book, I can't remember the name of the book, I should, but a couple of years ago I read a book that said, about education, that said that why is education sometimes feels so isolated because you're in a classroom by yourself as an adult. And it talks about we get better by practicing in the presence of others, which I think music educators understand better because it's a performance-based department. But when we say practice in the presence of others, if you think about surgeons and lawyers, they're in a courtroom, they're in an operating room, and when they're practicing their craft, there are other experts and colleagues around them that are giving them sort of spot-to-spot feedback, or after the fact will give them feedback about how they did in the courtroom or how they did during that surgery. And as teachers, we don't often practice in the presence of others. So that's what we hope to do more. And this was a day that certainly illustrated that. So you're really important to do that. So thank you all.
Thank you. Do you have any questions for me or
For the kids.
I have a question for
Yeah.
the kids. I know Alexa said she wants to go into music. I wonder if anyone else is choosing music as their next step after high school.
I'm not. I'm choosing education, so it kind of comes into play there because not music education, but just education in general.
Good, we need good teachers.
And Alexa, actually, Rachel Lauber, our clinician, has works closely with the Eastman School of Music, which is one of the best schools for music, and spoke to Alexa about applying and gave her some context. So it really,
That's a nice.
worked out well for her too.
Yeah, that was a great motivation, like a push to know that even the guest clinician who works with everyone around the country told me that I definitely should look into the school, which I was overlooking just because of the location, but she said as a person and even like the school itself would be a great fit for me, so I'm actually applying there now.
Great.
For you, good luck.
How about the rest? Any other?
And one last note, which I didn't mention, but each year our own staff too from Foxborough always presents, and we're really proud of our music department and our teachers and staff, and that's also one of the reasons why people come back to us, is they get really excited about seeing our program, and so I think that's really special that our own Ted Haggerty and George Murphy this year were able to participate and present, and Dave and Steve have done presentations in the past, so
Great.
makes it a great day.
How about the other three seniors? What are you guys thinking about doing?
I was just gonna comment. I'm not really sure exactly where I want to go as far as going on into college. I know I'm applying to lots of colleges, want to do the 4-year degree, and hopefully something afterwards. But all the colleges I've applied to or ones I've come in contact with, I've talked about my music. Or basically, all 4 years of my high school and then carrying over back to the Ahern 4 years there. It's all about commitment and about the leadership that you get out of band and orchestra, and all of that is so important for colleges that though I'm not going into, or I don't plan on going into music, it's been such a core aspect of my education so far, so it all kind of correlates in my opinion.
I'm not going into music either. I want to go into journalism, but like Jen said, I definitely think that the music program has been such a big part of my life. It's going to be weird not having it next year, but yeah, learning leadership and learning how to be creative, and just all the kids. It's such a community of nice people, and I feel like that's not really as known, but I'm gonna miss it when it's over.
No, I definitely don't think I'm going to be a music major either, but it's funny because I look at schools and I check to see if they have chamber groups for orchestra, or if they have, kind of club groups sort of thing, because I don't think I'll ever play at a professional level, but I definitely want to continue it. I've made some of my best friends in the music program, and even some of not my best friends are people I love and I love talking to about music and other things. So I definitely want to continue that part of my education as well.
Nice.
Great.
It's a great day.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You make me want to come and learn.
You're more than welcome next year.
And I can't tell what's more valuable, listening to Cammie and the students describe the program, or just listening to the students articulate so well and describe what you want to do. And it's really a pleasure to have 5 seniors in front of us and to just listen to your comments. So thank you. Dr. Berdos, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to mention that there's a tremendous amount of planning that goes into this, as you can imagine. And Cammie and Dave Piper both have spent an exorbitant amount of hours putting this together and making sure that the clinicians are top-notch, as you heard. And when you look through she read a couple of the different quotes, but throughout all of those evaluations, you consistently see the word motivating and inspirational that comes out of all of those 63 forms that came back from the participants. So it was a great day, but it was a lot of work, and
It's
well
worth it, though. I mean, you can hear it.
I did notice one more thing, because I know we've talked extensively about technology, and I see you even brought that into your subject matter. That one of the cloud-based tools for music education was one of your breakout sessions. Breakout sessions. So you really covered everything. Didn't
We
you?
really tried to.
Yeah.
We tried to be as something for everyone. We really
They've
tried
really done
to
an
do
amazing
that.
job over the last years, mixing it up a little bit. I think 2 years in a row, they had a mime who was doing nonverbal communication. That was fast. I actually stayed for the whole breakout session. It was fascinating to see, because if you think about it, there's nonverbal communication and conducting and in an ensemble performance anyway. But that was a fascinating session, so you just never know what they're gonna come up with that has to do with creating that art spirit.
Yeah.
So.
Very impressive.
Steve? you know.
Speaking of mime, I can't keep quiet, right? No, this was great because it shows what our administration supports the faculty, which, everything, is in a connected, okay? Can any of this be brought into other subject matters, especially for the students here that are not necessarily going to be music majors, but faculty can show best practices for other subject matters that these might trickle into other seminars? I just didn't know if those are something you've thought about or you've seen
Well, that's-
for other
that
types of music.
question would
or-
come over this direction,
Yeah.
since I wouldn't
I'm happy to answer,
expect
but-
Cami to answer
It's-
for
it's
anyone
just more
other
of
than
a
her
comment,
department.
too, because
Well,
I
I
know there's a
think-
lot of work. And
I
it's-
think it's something that's easily, not easily accomplished, but it fits music because it's performance-based, a lot of the workshops. We didn't have students in every one of these breakout sessions, but the ones that are performance-based, certainly we had students there. But we can't necessarily require all students, or a lot of them, to come in on that day to help us out. But we had over 30 workshops going on throughout the district, Amy and
That's
her
great.
team planned. So
Wow.
I think this lends itself certainly to having students there. Not all of them do, or maybe most of them don't, but when we can, it's just such a great idea.
Yeah, that had a lot of impact. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thanks so much. See you again. Have a great senior year.
Thank you.
Well, we know how valuable professional development days are and how limited they are, but boy, if you take a look at this list of 30-plus sessions that Amy and her team put together, it's phenomenal.
Amazing.
Yeah, I wish the public could see what a broad array of topics you put together, Amy. And if ever there's a question about what happens on those days, boy, this is very, and I think I've said this before in past PD days, but this is really, I think, a great investment in our kids and our staff and our future, so great work.
Sure is. We try to put the most powerful punch we can in those days. But you're right, we had everything from workshops on autism to grief, curriculum development about grief, to focusing on efficiency in instruction in English language arts, developing teaching points for Readers Writers Workshop. So really lasering in on exactly what we're going to put priority on in the teaching. We had an amazing math workshop with Mahesh Sharma, who's actually a nationally known math expert that for the first time we're lucky enough to have him come here. We had case studies for therapists, like speech and language therapists, for OTs, PTs. We had, we had the kindergarten assessment, Teaching Strategies Gold, which is the assessment data collection we're doing in kindergarten. We had biology workshops, smartboard training. We had the 2-minute tip guys and fitness initiatives through the American Heart Association. We had work on developing common formative assessments. Amy mentioned depression. We had counselor events, just, everything that you can imagine going on. Whatever was the highest priority for each department in that content area at this moment in time.
And I know we've said it before, you've said it before, but I think it bears repeating that we do our professional development early in the year so that our teachers can put that knowledge directly into play in the classroom, and have the benefit of it throughout the school year, and have our students have the benefit of it.
That's
So
good
this
point.
is all, to our students' advantage and to our teachers as lifelong learners. It's
Right.
good stuff.
That's a good point, thank you. We have one more at the end of January, but we've already had 4 out of our 5 professional development days.
That's great. Anything else? Joe, go ahead.
I was wondering, say if we have so many snow days, say if we have 3 by the end, cancellation days by the first meeting in January, do you think we could, I'm not saying this, we don't need to do this now, I'm talking about say if we have 3 by the January meeting, I wonder if we could do school and staff development day when we had Dr. Martis here.
Oh, that happened that one time, but We probably won't do that because we do so much planning to have people come in to do workshops that it's an important day for our learning.
Well, we
Plus,
did that, remember
my
they-
goal is to have 0, Joe.
Remember we had to remove that at the end of the year?
Yes, that was an idea that we tried that one time, but then to have the professional development day at the end of the year didn't work out so great. So I don't know if it's an idea we would repeat, but
Alrighty.
every idea is a good idea to try, at least once.
Good thinking, Joe.
Yes.
Amy, thank you. Great day.
Yes, wonderful day.
Great day. Okay, MCAS results.
I'm happy to report that this is something that Dr. Burdos is in charge of. So I'm just going to turn it right over to her. She gets set up, as you know. We provide you annually in October a 2-part MCAS analysis report. The first part, which is tonight, is our overview of the MCAS results, more or less a global look. I call it the bird's eye view. And then Amy and a wider variety of our curriculum directors, department heads, and administrators will be back at the next meeting to do MCAS analysis part 2, which is the more in-depth. What do we think? What have we drilled down to? What are we analyzing? So here we are with the overview, part 1. You have a lot of information in your packet. I think Amy's goal tonight is to try to hit on the high points and maybe the new way of looking at data that the Department of Ed is encouraging, and then taking your individual questions, and then we'll see where we are. So, Amy, to you.
All right. So we do have a lot of data, and I'm not going to go through every single data point that's in your packet, because what you have is really showing our trends over time for each grade level, and then also showing the same group of students over time as a cohort. So I wanted to start off by giving you just some global statements, really, because the nitty-gritty, if you will come at the next meeting when we dive down a little bit further. As long as my clicker works here. So one of the things we do look at, we want to make sure that we're keeping pace, obviously, and more importantly, above the state average, and we consistently do that. And we do that on all 17 tests in ELA and math, and quite above the state average in many of those different areas. When we look at grade 10, that is the graduation requirement in math, science, and ELA for our students. So that is really an important one to look at. It is, when we think about the continuum of learning from elementary, it culminates there. So when we look at our performance in ELA and math, it has remained very strong. We're very proud of the work that our students and our educators do. And we also look to see, are we increasing the number of our students that move to advanced? Because we have students that score very high, and so when you are starting to hit the ceiling in some aspects on some tests, you want to see that continued growth. If they're low proficient, we want to look to see that we're moving them to high proficient. If they're high proficient, that we're moving them over to advanced. Because when they do all of the calculations, all of those things count. So when we look at grade 10, the percentage of students in ELA increased for advanced by 8%, and then in math by 11%. When we look at the MCAS and ELA prior to grade 10, we see consistent performance over time at the elementary level, and 3, which is actually reading, and it's not called English Language Arts, and then in grade 4 and 5. We want to look at the performance, but keep in mind that it is a different test every single year. They are different students every single year. So in addition to looking at achievement, it's very important that we look at growth. We've been able to look at growth since about 2008 with students in grades 4 and above, because it takes 2 years. So we don't have growth percentiles for grade 3. But keep in mind that typical growth for the student growth percentile is between 40 and 60. So we look at grade 4 there, and our student growth percentile average over the last 5 years is 55, which is really approaching that high growth, because 60 and above is high. When we look at grade 5, we see it still in the typical, but on the lower end of typical. So we want to look at that percentage as well as our achievement and see where we've had consistent performance, and if it's been, in some cases, kind of flat, quite honestly, what are the reasons? And we're digging into that and have been over the last number of years. When we look at the middle school, we see that 80% of our students are proficient or advanced. So it's harder to have that higher growth when you're starting to hit that ceiling. To have 80% of your students proficient advanced, that's something that, you know, obviously we're proud of, and we want to continue to make sure that we're looking at all of our students where they are. So overall, we're consistent over time in English language arts, and our growth percentiles are on the typical to the higher levels, but we do look at grade 5 and 8 at those growth percentiles because they're not as high as some of the other grade levels.
Amy, how does that compare with others across the state? Do many people have 80% or better at that proficiency?
We have consistently outperformed the state when you look at each of those tests for the number of proficient and advanced. So we are higher there. As far as the target for growth percentile, it's 51. So when you see 55, you see 60, you see those higher levels of growth, that's getting into high growth. And that's going to be able to give us something to look for as far as where our areas of focus can be, depending on grade levels, looking back to curriculum, looking at our instruction. So I'm kind of giving this global view, and then we're going to look at how that student achievement kind of compares to growth here in a minute. So when we look in the area of math, a lot of work has been put into math, if you will, when we look at the curriculum review that we've had, the professional development, the curriculum work that's been done, because we really saw a lot of changes. And this is the first year that the MCAS is reflective completely of the 2011 curriculum frameworks. Last year we had a hybrid. We had part of the old standards and part of the new. This is the first year where all the standards that were tested are in the new framework. So when we look at performance in grades 3, 6, 8, and 10, that's our greatest area of performance. This year, we saw an increase of the number of students scoring advanced at all of those levels as well.
Exciting.
Over the last 5 years, there's consistent performance in grades 3 and 4, and we've seen gradual increases with students scoring advanced and proficient. And then we're looking specifically where we see that consistent in those gradual increases, what does the growth look like? So we've seen that increase in the last 3 years, and just here recently, you had a 58 growth percentile in grade 4, so that is getting up to that high growth area. The performance for grades 5, 6, 7, and 8, again, it's consistent over time. When we look at grade 6 in the last 5 years, we have all 5 years had over 60%. So it really is a lot of work that takes place with all of the teachers that are at that level, but we see a lot of the standards that come in at grade 6 too. So to see that kind of performance with the number of standards that are there, that's quite impressive. As far as at grade 8, 38% of our students scored advanced. When we look there, and we're continuing again there to see the increase in growth over the last 3 years with a 73 growth percentile there, so high growth there. So we're looking at the math, we're seeing increased performance, we're seeing higher growth each year.
Amy, can I ask you a quick question? Do you put more emphasis on the growth rate versus the category where students perform, or is it similar but different views?
We look at both because it's really important to see where a student begins and where they're going to go. So if we see that they have really high performance, quite honestly, your growth is not going to be as high.
Right.
Because you are compared against peers that are like your scores in the past. But if we see someone that has not scored as high, maybe they're at the needs improvement, but they're high needs improvement, we want to see what kind of growth that they've had, because that's going to tell us a lot. It's not just the one indicator. And so it's nice that the Department of Ed recognizes that, because it was a different test. It is different students every year. So we need to look at where those students are and where we're taking them. At the same time, we tease out, even within proficient. We have a lot of students that have moved from low proficient to high proficient, from needs improvement, low needs improvement to high needs improvement. Those are important gains to look at as well.
I assume similarly, your advice for parents who might be new to MCAS would be to look at both their students' growth and the category where they're performing?
Yes, absolutely. Look at your own student, and then also look at your students. They have a parent report that tells them where they are in relationship to their school and their district. And it may be, for instance, at the middle school, the school is the same as the district. But look at the performance there. Look at where they are. I know with my own daughter, looking at hers, and she started to have her face drop when she looked at it. But then I showed her, let's look at the growth percentile. This is how much you've grown in 2 years. Let's also look at where the majority of all of your classmates are. And once she looked at that, because I think it's important to have that conversation with your students, that she sees that, oh, I did learn a lot. And I'm right there with the majority of my classmates. And it really gave her that boost that she needed at the same time to talk about strengths in ELA versus math or science. We all have different strengths and areas of challenge. So to talk about that, that gave us opportunities for other conversations.
Thank you.
In the area of science, this one is the one that is challenging for us when we look at it, because honestly, we become frustrated because we look at the percentage of students that are scoring proficient or higher. And at grades 5 and 8, we see that 56% of them in grade 5 were proficient or higher, and at grade 8, 42% of them proficient or higher. However, when we look at grade 10, where it counts and where it's a graduation requirement, you see a very different picture. You see here that we had a 15% increase from last year with our number of students scoring proficient and advanced, which is a 22% gain in the last 5 years. We had 90% of our students here scoring proficient or advanced. And when you look at the number of advanced, we have 46% of them that are advanced. Well, that doesn't happen just in 10th grade. It happens over time, but there's also very big differences between the tests. Grade 5 and grade 8 is over 4 different domains. They're tested, that test is a compilation of 25% life, physical, earth and space, and technology engineering. Those 4 domains are tested in grade 5. When you look at those standards that go along with those 4 domains, the Department of Ed
Some people
and
might call those, instead of like sciences. So 4 very different sciences, all 4 are tested below grade 10.
And when we look at those standards for what students should know and be able to do, those are grouped in a span of grades 3 to 5 standards. Then we have the local autonomy to choose what standards will be emphasized in grade 5, in grade 6, or grade 3, grade 4. So depending on when they take the 5th grade MCAS, they're having to retain that knowledge from 3rd grade through 4th grade before that assessment actually happens in 5th. And 4 different sciences. Same is true for 8th grade. So when you look at our comparison to the state, yes, we outperform the state. But when you look at that percentage, it can be frustrating, but you have to keep in mind, it's 4 different sciences, and it's
And the
unlike
10th grade test is
grade.
biology only.
It's just.
It's the only subject-specific MCAS test across all subjects.
So when do high school
It's the
students
only
take
one.
biology?
Well,
In
you
ninth
can
grade or
take
10th
this, you
grade
can
or-
take the high
Both.
school, you actually have a choice, but you can take the high school, most kids take the biology. You can take it whenever you take bio. So if in some other school system it's in 11th grade, you could take it in 11th grade. So, because it's the only subject or course-specific
Specific
MCAS
test.
exam, but you could also take chemistry, or you could take,
Physics.
I think it's tech engineering, but nobody ever does, I don't think.
Physics.
Physics. So you have a choice of 3. Most high schools have their students take the bio exam, whenever you take biology.
Yeah. So as an example,
Good.
last year, I believe we had 46 ninth graders that took the biology exam, but the majority of them have that in 10th grade and
Right.
took that in 10th grade.
So whenever you have bio, you take the MCAS, and that counts as your science MCAS graduation requirement. Makes it
That's
pretty
good,
unique.
that's, yeah,
for me.
that's good that it's flexible.
So what do we, plan on doing for the kids, especially in 8th grade where we have more of the needs improvement and warning than in a proficient, at least?
Well, a
To help them
number of things are in place. We have, through the schedule at the middle school, we have support for students. At the same time, we look at what's taking place with our curriculum and where, meaning in 9th grade, because they're now 9th graders. So we look back at our performance in 8th grade, and then we look at those individual standards, and whether it's number sense, or it's measurement, or it's geometry. So that's something that's important for, even though they're now at the high school, for those teachers to look back to see where are our strengths and where are areas that we may not be as strong within those different strands within math. So to answer your question, we have the ACT Lab here at the high school. So that's available for students in ELA and math. Teachers also have after-school sessions where they work with students. So there's a number of other supports that are here at the high school.
Did you want to continue before more questions?
You can stop me at any time. This one is that chart that will show you that group of students over time, which I think is important to look at, because if you look at that ELA, for example, in grade 4, so in 2009, 5 years ago, 65% of them were proficient or advanced. If we fast forward and look to see how did they do in 8th grade, we've now moved that same group of students to 85% proficiency or advanced. When you look at grade 7, 5 years ago, we look at where they are and how much they have gained. So that's just the achievement piece, but it's looking at that same suit of students at 94% a year ago. The same for math, so it really shows that it takes a village here. And when you look at the science as an example, 50%, when we're talking about that can be frustrating, you look at that same group of students, when they take that one test biology 2 years later, you've moved from 50% proficient or advanced to 90% of them are proficient or advanced. And out of that 90, 46% of them were advanced.
And again, just to repeat, in 8th grade, the test is on 4 different science subject matters that have been spread over 6th, 7th,
period.
and 8th grade.
Yes,
that
so
they have to retain and be tested on
yes, the
one day.
retention of that real content is always a challenge to every school district too. How do you retain specific knowledge that you've learned over the course of 3 years? I personally wouldn't want to be tested on something, whatever, everything I've
Nor
learned
would
over
I.
the last 3 years, but that's the nature and the challenge, I guess, of how they've structured the science.
But look at the improvement.
Right,
I
but
mean,
it does
that
make
makes
it
this-
it makes it a different challenge than ELA and math that are
Right.
tested every year. Once they start in 3rd grade, they're tested every year. Science certainly is more of a challenge because of the blocks of time.
Well, and it may be why you have a student who has done very well in science classes in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then perhaps has not achieved the same sort of result on their MCAS test that they had during their academic school year,
That's
just
true.
for example.
It may not reflect how they do on a regular
On a one
basis
day,
in
yeah.
class and with the expectations from year to year even.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all.
Amy, what is your candid comments reaction to this chart?
I see that it shows that our students are growing. I see that it shows us that in some areas we've remained stagnant. In English language arts, we've got some areas there where we have not seen as much movement as far as the achievement piece, and then also when we look at the growth percentiles at the same time. As far as what are the reasons for that, we have a lot of different ideas that are there. We're also keeping in mind that it is a test that has changed a little bit in the last several years with the new frameworks that have come through.
Yes.
And what kids are being asked to do is very different. And so adjusting to that, to be able to stay consistent, I think that's a really good thing at the same time, and not to see that dip with those changes that are taking place. When we look at the math, I think that we've seen some really nice improvement. There's a lot of work that's gone into math. So when we look at the achievement and we look at the growth, we're seeing kind of the effort that's been put into there show there. There's a couple of pockets where we're focusing our work. When we look at grade 5 as an example, we don't see as much growth there. We talk a lot about that being the first year, that it's a transition. We look at the standards that are specific to grade 5 and what students are being asked to do. So those are a lot of the things that you'll hear about at the next meeting. But overall, we're pleased with our students. We're pleased with the work that's there. We do see some areas that we would like to see grow more because it's been kind of the same for the last several years, in ELA in particular. But I think that in math, we've seen some really nice improvements.
The reason I ask is because the 5 cohort groups you've highlighted up there all show what appear to be pretty significant improvement. Are there some up there that if I looked more closely, I would see don't have the same level of growth? Is that why you had mixed comment?
You know, what I wanted to do when I circled those in particular, the science, I think, kind of goes without pointing that out when you look at such a drastic change. Honestly, most of those you're going to see the growth. You're going to see that kind of growth. As far as the drastic growth, I don't think it's any more drastic than the other ones that are up there. I mean, we can look at grade 3, and it was 66%, and it's at 84 by the time when those kids are last year. So you see those improvements. There are some, I mentioned before, we've seen some stagnant scores. So if I look at grade 3 as an example, in 2011 with that group of students, when they're in grade 5, you see it decline there. But that's where we see at grade 5, we're not seeing the growth as much as we are at other levels, and we're not seeing the higher achievement there. Right. So where you do not see the increases are those same grades that we've identified that it's been stagnant.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, please.
Does maturity of the student factor into some of this, that is, experience with taking the tests, and they're getting older and wiser and have a little bit of this under their belt as they grow into taking the test? Is there a maturity factor that's a component of this?
Well, I think maturity, one, when they know it counts in 10th grade and they have to pass for graduation, then that gets their attention. As far as middle school overall versus elementary,
yeah, I don't know if I call it maturity as much as I would call it the more experience you have with the test-taking format, regardless of your learning, you're going to know. That's why people take pre-SATs,
right,
and then take the actual one. You can take the PSATs a couple of times if you want. So there is a factor about the more used to the format and the expectation you get, the better test taker you'll be, rather than going in cold. So I think, I wouldn't call it maturity, but I call it experience in that type of test-taking format. That's why there's been so much talk about the change to the PARCC assessment, because the format is going to be very, very different. So we're going to have to reset a bit and teach kids how to take those kinds of tests, where they'll be completely online for many students, and where there will be an application aspect of those exams that we haven't seen. So there's going to be a little bit of a reset in the test-taking format, and we're going to have to get used to it too, and help students know how do you do well on a test like that. So I think that's part of it. But like Amy said, the test does change a little bit every year, and there's been a little bit, even in the math, sometimes we have surprises as what's emphasized on this year's math test, because they don't emphasize it to the same extent the year before or the year after. So for example, if you see, well, let's just take something that's easy to find on that. If you take the students who were third graders in 2009, and you just look diagonally down, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you see relatively steady growth. So more and more kids are learning and becoming proficient in that. So it was kind of a trajectory you'd expect. If you take the same kids, 2009 and third grade in mathematics, and you can see that they were up a little, down a little, up a little, up a little, down a little. So the test shift a little bit, but it's how kids are adjusting to those expectations and those standards as well. So the questions change every year, the kids change. Those kids aren't changing every year, but that's more curious as to how does the same group of kids do a little bit better, and then as a whole group seem to be challenged by it. But the standards do change from grade to grade, and sometimes after the teachers give an exam, they'll say like, okay, that was what I expected, just having proctored the exam. And other times they'll glimpse some questions that they'll say, whoa, you know, what, that was heavily emphasized this year, and we didn't necessarily anticipate it or had seen it. So it really depends. In many ways, it's a test of agility. You know, in their thinking, can they? And so that's why we try to prepare students not for just recollection of facts, but how do you approach a new problem? So do you have enough of a foundation that you can apply knowledge to a new question, a new area, and have your mind be resilient and flexible enough to be able to think through that, given what you do know?
And the other thing is just the degree of difficulty of test when you look at the particular standards for a grade level. Some grade levels have a lot more new standards that are introduced versus a particular grade level that may be in reinforcing and taking those same standards to a different level. So you really have to think about what standards are at a particular grade level and the degree of difficulty there.
So for us, it really becomes not necessarily about numbers, but what can we learn from the results that we just got from this year? What can we learn about individual students and where they might have some gaps? What can we learn about our general curriculum and program and where we might have some strengths and where we might have some weak areas that we want to shore up so that the next group of students performs more strongly in those standards or subtopics?
And the other piece that plays into this, our focus on our common formative assessments, our own district-developed assessments, or the assessments that we've developed through like Galileo, we look at those as predictors of success for MCAS because those are standards-based assessments at the same time. So that way, along the way throughout the year, we can go back to those areas where we're starting to see that kids may be struggling. So just as a reminder, the growth percentile, that's really looking at the progress at the performance levels for students over time. We do not have a growth percentile in science because it takes 2 consecutive years, and where science is 5, 8, and 10, you are not able to have that number. It gives us areas to be able to focus on for improvement for those students that may not be showing as high growth, and then also our high achieving students, what more can we do for them? So this particular chart is showing all of our grade levels in English language arts. And this is that 0 to 100 growth percentile. And you have this in your packet. And I just wanted to draw attention here to those 2 lines between 40 and 60. That is typical growth between those 2 red lines. Anywhere to the right of that line is heading towards high growth. To the left would be heading toward lower growth. So we can see that the majority of our grades, the performance in ELA, is in that band of typical growth and then moving towards high growth. So really the goal is to have both. So if we look at that same chart, you want to see our grade levels in that upper right quadrant where it's showing high growth and it's also showing high achievement. So the majority of grades in ELA, although I've said that we've remained somewhat stagnant in certain areas, we also have high performance that's there. So it's important to keep in mind where you are within the number of students of where they're scoring for the performance.
So if we could hopefully help people at home with clarity on this. So the x-axis going across shows the state growth, the average growth across the state. So if your bubbles are above that, then you have a higher growth. So we want to see where we are in each of the tests be above that. So that when we say that we're above the state average for growth, you can see where we are. And to be to the right of the vertical, that's our achievement, sorry. That's our achievement going up above the line. And the growth is looking at the vertical and being to the right of it. So that's what she's saying, that we want to be above for the performance and above for the growth, put you in the upper right quadrant.
So this is an excellent chart. I used to love the bubble chart, the prior chart. I think this one's better.
Okay.
New favorite. It's our new favorite.
Just my personal, but you know what this says is we are, you know, we're in the right direction for the vast majority.
Right.
Which is really, really good.
So if you look at the bubble that's highest to the top, we have very high achievement up there in that exam, for example. So in order to move that to the right, it's gonna be really difficult, because if you already have so many students who are proficient or advanced, and that means you have a lot of kids in advanced as well, it's harder, it's gonna be harder to show a high rate of growth, because you don't have much
A lot of
wiggle
room.
room.
Yeah. So as that particular example right there, that's 95% of our kids are proficient or advanced, and out of that, 53% of that 90 are advanced. So you're hitting the ceiling there,
It's excellent.
which is, I mean, it really is tremendous.
That's a pretty good news.
When we look at that same graph for math, so again, looking between 40 and 60, we look to see the typical growth here. We see one area here, this is the grade 5 that I was mentioning before, that we see not as high of growth as the other grades, and then we have grades 6 and 8 over in the high growth. So if you look at that quadrant, once again, here's your area where you want to be, high growth, high achievement. The majority, there's all students right there if you look at them cumulatively. And then as far as those areas there, still within that typical growth, but you're looking at, again, the higher percent there with 88% of our kids being proficient or advanced when it comes to grade 10 when it counts. And 66% of them are advanced.
88 and 66.
88% of those students there on the math. So although they're in typical growth there, you have to keep in mind that out of 88% of them, 66% of those students scored advanced.
Good.
So just two more charts to look at. When I wanted to try to visually look on the same page as the achievement and at the growth, what does it look like? Because what we want to see is that we're improving each year in both areas. And if we're seeing really high performance, then we might not see as high of growth. And does it look that way when we look at them? So I put these two charts on this one page. So this is ELA over
You don't
time.
have that in your packet.
You do not have
See
this.
people looking for it. So.
Okay.
I put this one together today because I started to.
Today, this is her Monday wow.
Your Monday wow.
I started asking other questions. Well, what does it look like over 5 years? We've looked at it in table chart, but I wanted to see it visually. And when I look at that top chart that you have here, so this is grade 4. So the colors here are not as visible for you, but I want to see with grade 4 over the last 5 years. Am I increasing my achievement? And if I'm not going higher or if I'm staying relatively the same, what does my growth look like? So I look down here to see I have high growth here. The same as when I look at grade 10, this top line is where I want to see that we've increased each year, which we have. So that's the 95% of kids that we were saying that are proficient or advanced. So when we look at them, I'm looking down here at the growth percentile, and although it wasn't at the highest growth this year, we were at the highest achievement, but we still were close to 60. We're at 58.5% growth. So looking at that correlation between the two, you can see kind of the ups and downs, but if I see a growth percentile that may be lower, then I can look and see, well, are we increasing on the achievement? So it's important to be able to look at both of those numbers and how they relate with each other, and that's the Department of Ed at the same time really focusing on where's your achievement, but also what have you done for the students as far as taking them from where they were and where we've moved them.
I think the bottom, the top is very consistent, so our achievement every year, shows the same trajectory in groups. But when you look at the bottom, even that is fairly consistent in the way that it runs. We call it like a W type of graph. But it's what shows you pretty consistently, for example, is that it's much harder for students as a whole group, as a cohort group, to show growth from grade 4 to 5. So we always ask ourselves, what are the difference in the standards on those two tests? Where's our curriculum? So it's so consistent that it's not individual to a personality of a group or a skill set of a group. So we start taking a look at the tests and how in depth they go with some of the standards or their new standards. So it's just, it's easier, you can see, for cohorts of students every single year to show much greater growth between 5 and 6. So that's one of the things we'd ask ourselves, why is that? What are some factors that contribute to that we control? What are some factors that we don't? So those are the kinds of things that make us ask those questions.
Have you looked at what the state's curve is like for that? I mean, I would guess it's a W also, but it'd be interesting to compare.
Yes, it really is. And when not at any of the grade levels does it look really that far different.
So
as far as their-
statewide, it's not just in Foxborough, statewide, students going from grade 4 to grade 5 are struggling, adjusting
show
to
growth.
the, right, to whatever the test change is, or,
So when you look right there at grade 8 as an example, so it's hard again to see the number there, but 85% of the students are proficient or advanced. So higher
Yeah,
achievement, you
understand.
look at the lower growth there, but at the same time, we increase the number of students from proficient to advanced by 7% there.
Right.
So it's all of these numbers that we look at.
But that doesn't mean, I just want to make sure, it doesn't mean we accept that. So middle school has a huge initiative going on that's really hard-hitting on Readers, Writers Workshop in grades 5 and 6 that really started a little bit last year, but really took on full steam this year. So we look at, not that we just accept, well, that's the way it's going to be, but what can we impact that could change that growth percentile? So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this year's kids, you know, with a little shift in how we're approaching English language arts instruction in grade 5. So that's the sort of thing that we're very curious about. So is there something we can do that would impact the growth, the student growth over time? So we'll see.
And at the same time, what we're looking for the impact there is the content literacy standards for the new framework, where all teachers are really working on authentic literacy. So you're going to have that across curriculums that you haven't had as much emphasis in the past.
And so will that make a difference?
And so it's just the same thing for math. Looking at that correlation between where we were in one, over the last 5 years as far as achievement. Are we seeing that we're continuing to increase each year with the 5th grade, with the 6th, 7th, et cetera? And then looking at the correlation for the growth. And again, looking that between 40 and 60 across that band, that's your typical growth. So anything above 60, all of those, that's high growth for those grades.
very good.
Excellent. Keep up the good work.
A lot of numbers.
Yes.
It's really
Glad
the
I'm not
work that
getting
goes
tested on
behind
this.
that.
Thank you, Amy. I mean, this is fantastic information. I can't wait to hear phase 2 or part 2, what we're going to do next.
Steve, anything further on this?
No, thank you very much.
Bevy?
Excellent. Thank you for all your work.
Yeah, I think not only do the results seem to be consistent and in the right direction, but also the rigor with which you analyze it and we analyze as a district, I think should help the public feel comfortable. It makes me as a parent feel comfortable. So thank you for what you do.
I second that.
And I think it's important too, those parent reports that come home, there's a lot of information. You know, it's a big paper that folds. There's a lot of explanation that's there. But if parents have questions on those, ask their classroom teachers. Because that's something that they can easily go over with them if they have those questions. A lot of it's really self-explanatory, but it's not if you are not familiar with looking at it.
When if you've moved on to the middle school, you can always go back and talk to your elementary school teacher as
Absolutely.
well, or principal.
Absolutely.
They're
Or if
always
you just want help
available.
interpreting the report, call anyone who works in the schools. So we're having a big year for you, sophomore. You get all the tests, I think, English, math, and biology. We'll look forward to you hearing about your experience in the spring after you've taken them. So that'll be great. Good to have a sophomore on.
Thanks, Amy. Okay, we are on to superintendent's goals.
We are. So my job is to present the school committee with my annual goals. And this is after, of course, my review that I recently had with all of you. Thank you so much. And what are my goals for this year? So you can see that there are 6 goals that I put down for this year, and I'll just briefly go through them and why I decided on them. Let me start with the second one, because that one's the same from last year. If you remember, my student learning goal from last year is a 2-year goal, and what we did was we collected baseline data a year ago about where do we offer opportunities for advanced learning, enrichment, and challenge, and to increase that by 20% at each level over 2 years. So we worked a little bit on that last year. We asked students what they wanted, what would they be interested in that they felt would enrich them or challenge them more, or provide them with opportunities for advanced learning. So we are working on that. So this coming June, there'll be a measurement of that goal. My first professional practice goal has to do with something we read this summer, so I'll do a little thing. So we read, for our professional reading this summer, we read something for our administrative retreat. And this was the book I picked this year. It's a district-wide professional reading for our entire administrative team, which includes department heads, coordinators, and other key people across the district. And it's by Mike Schmoker, and it's called Focus, Elevating the Essentials to Radically Improve Student Learning. And this book for us was timely because even though it came out a couple of years ago, not many years ago, but just a few, with all the stuff we had going on last year with educator evaluation and a lot of new things and a lot of new changes and new initiatives that we've had, that what this book really says to do is to focus on, believe it or not, simplicity, clarity, and priority. So his advice is to take the 3 components of school success that all the research has really shown if you work on those things really hard. What we teach, which is our curriculum that you hear a lot about through curriculum reviews and review reports such as Amy presented with her team about mathematics at our last meeting. How we teach it, what are our instructional methodologies? How do we introduce new concepts to kids that will stick, that will help them become lifelong learners? And then the third thing that has been proven time after time after time is authentic literacy. Can students read, write, speak, listen, and express themselves and communicate efficiently across all aspects of the curriculum, which we call authentic literacy in all content areas. So are they proficient readers and writers of content, and can they communicate about that? Because that's going to be really important in college and really important in life, no matter what you do. So regardless of all the other initiatives we have, what really are we going to focus on and put the priority on? And these 3 things are key. And he makes the case that if we don't put an intense focus on what we teach, how we teach, and authentic literacy, that all else would be for naught, because that's the foundation of the building block of a solid educational program. So actually this did get pretty positive reviews this summer. Everybody felt it was really an important time, and so we call this our year of priority. So our year of focus is what we're calling it. So we're looking at everything we do and trying to be a little bit more leisure-like and take away some things that maybe are old, we don't need to do anymore, or maybe we can do less of. So we actually asked ourselves 3 questions. What should we do more of? What should we do less of or stop doing? And the third question was, what else do we need to think about? And we collected everyone's ideas from the summer. So I think my job as a superintendent is to keep our whole administrative team in the district focused on simplicity, clarity, priority, and those 3 components. And so we started doing it through administrative team meetings, through our professional development workshops. I talked about it opening day. So that's why I've made it my professional goal, and I included my professional practice goal, and I included for the committee just the introductory paragraph from Focus that would explain what each of those components are in kind of as short as possible. Are there questions about that goal?
I love the authentic literacy part of this. I know that we've seen more writing come home, even in math. They've had to do more writing, and it just permeates one's life going forward. Whatever discipline you go into, you need to be a good writer. So I love that component of this, and focus is everything. So I think it's great. I can't wait to see what happens going forward.
Great, so we'll go to that one?
Mm-hmm.
I talked about the student learning goal already. For district improvement goals, I really put a lot of thought into what are we really, together as a committee and the administrative team, what are we working really hard on? And that's what you said you want me at the mid-cycle point, the middle of the year, to report to you is what do I think we're doing well, what do I think I'm doing well, and what are we working really hard on? So I kept those words in mind when I was trying to formulate my goals, because I want them to be meaningful. I want them to be focused on the important work of the district, not just things I think I should do or have to do. So these are the things that I think are the important work of the district that are my responsibility. So one is to develop and implement a growth plan for STEM subjects, which are science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and for business and technical education, in order to expand opportunities for students and to pursue new opportunities for community support for these endeavors. So what I started last June is I met with the department heads who are pertinent to this and the high school administrative team in June to have a preliminary conversation to see where we were and really to help me clarify and decide if this was going to be an area of focus for me this year. We met in September again, and from that we came up with our action steps you can see in the STEM and Business Tech Ed growth plan. So you can see goal number 1 is to expand STEM education, and the flip side, goal number 2 is business and technical education. And you can see some of the things that we have put forward to develop career exploration, field trips. I'll just read a few. The senior project is part of that, to incorporate more STEM pathways into career day, to revamp, hopefully, a high school engineering course, to investigate independent studies in STEM, externships, a lunch and learn program to have experts come in and talk to students in small snippets about what they do. We were able to add the AP Physics course this fall, so different things. And from those growth areas or action steps, if you will, we then outlined last month opportunities for community support. So this is going to become kind of a talking point document for me as I connect with businesses, any kind of community agency, or anyone in the community that would like to come and help us out with this growth plan. What is it that we're asking for? So, for example, if we are trying to develop career exploration field trips, maybe we can develop some new destinations, especially in the area of science, research, accounting, engineering, machine shops, et cetera, like that. When it comes to expanding extracurricular opportunities, we're working really hard on a two-prong approach to increasing the opportunity to participate in robotics at the high school. One with just specializing in robotics, students who want to just specialize in that, and how can we do that? And the other component would be students who are in the science club. They enter the Science Olympiad every year. So can I reach out to people in the community or businesses to say, is there someone who can come in and help us with the robotics piece? Because that's where that team loses points in the Science Olympiad. So we need a little bit outside experts on that. So here's some opportunities for community support. And then we put contact people so that as I give this out in the community, like a leaflet, and talk to people, they would know, they could take it back and think about it and know who to get in touch with if they could.
Deb, can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
So, this is fantastic. Very, very much in the right direction, I think. Opportunities for community support.
Yes.
What have you thought about as a good way to get that message out broadly to help you accelerate the implementation of some of these things?
Well, I'm glad you asked. If anybody's watching at home and you have interest in business or tech ed or STEM, please come forward. But I'm also going to do deliberate outreach. So I've already met with Mr. Evan Invencis, for example, him this. There are many other opportunities in the community that I think I could do that personal outreach for as the spokesperson, if you will, or the person who can maybe draw some people in that might maybe have been involved with the schools before. Certainly Invencis has in a myriad of ways. But I think that if we put this out through parent groups, through any venue that we have really to communicate this is how we're trying to grow. You're also going to hear me talk about it a little bit more when we get into budget season. Mm-hmm. So you as a committee can discuss how you can support my growth plan. So one of the reasons I took this upon myself is because we've got so many people working on STEM. If you think about it, it's the science department, it's the math department, it's the technical and business education people. And we also have a lot of teachers, we've got a lot of administrators at all levels interested in this, but it's really hard to push one area forward unless you have somebody leading it. So I felt that we're sort of ripe for me taking the responsibility to lead the whole growth plan and to develop it myself. So anybody who has anything and has my email address, feel free to email me. I'll call the office and say, I heard you're trying to expand STEM. I'm interested. Can you send me something? whatever it is.
To Bruce's point, how do we reach out to our alumni from Foxborough High School? I mean, I know we have people here who've gone on to do great things in robotics and other areas, who are graduates of Foxborough High School and might be very willing to come back and help their alma mater. Do we keep track of any information?
Well, it's
through the
hard to
career?
keep personal contact information for graduates. So we don't have a database for that, nor do I know, I mean, I know some people do try to keep track of that, and I think we're interested in that in the future, but even, let's say you're a sophomore in college and you've left your email address, sometimes they change that too. So with this age of technology, it can be really hard to maintain an accurate current database of graduates. But I think that the people we could reach out to actually sometimes keep in touch with faculty. So I think there's a lot of ways that the word could get out, but there are many things on this list you can see that we can do, so that it's an internal focus with maybe a little bit more energy than has been in the past.
Good.
And the same for business education. For example, we're really looking carefully to see whether we have our pathways identified for business tech ed and for STEM subjects. And through this meeting, because I was taking this on as one of my goals, what I discovered is that we used to have a pathways brochure, if you will, that the guidance department had, and it actually, I think the most recent was 2009, and it identified for students which courses relate to one another. I don't really know why that stopped, but when I said we need to create this, sure enough, one came my way during the meeting and said, well, we used to have one, and it's actually really good. So if they're working on that now, if we could reinvent that, that's really important for kids to know who are interested in certain subjects. But we're also trying to, right, so new information comes your way when you ask. So the one thing that I'm not sure of that we're going to tackle as a team is that, for example, if kids are interested in accounting, what's the pathway? That you could take electives, for example. If you're interested in marketing, what opportunities do we have for you? And are there some areas that we don't have a complete pathway? So that's what we're looking at.
So the Tri-County Chamber of Commerce might, if they're watching out there, might want to reach out to us.
They might, or if I go to their luncheon in 2 weeks, I might bring some things
know
with
that
me,
too, yeah.
hypothetically speaking. But I believe Joe Kennedy is
Yeah,
speaking,
Joe
so I
will
don't
be
want to
there.
maybe trip on that territory. But I might go with a few and say, could I come back?
Mm-hmm.
So that's on my list
Yep.
as an outreach activity.
I like your lunch and learn idea, too.
That's the high school's idea. I love that. And the middle school wants it as well.
So guest speakers could come in and spend some time at lunch with some students interested in an area.
That's right.
Come in on your lunch break and
Exactly. So what's something you're interested in?
For me going to college, I plan on going to double major and double minor.
In what?
I'm gonna major in defense or prosecution law and
Defense or prosecution law?
Mhm.
Okay. So if we
Defense
were
or
to example, say, put out a schedule of lunch and learn, and we were gonna have a prosecuting attorney from the DA's office here on Thursday, November, whatever, any student is interested in that could eat lunch and sit at the table and learn what do they do and confirm. Wouldn't that be great?
yeah.
So we would get that out. That's exactly what a lunch and learn is.
excellent.
Okay.
That's gonna be awesome.
So but we want to have sort of you can see at the bottom,
I feel like
we'd
that
love
would-
to keep an ongoing speakers bureau and a list of contact information of people, whether they're alumni or not. What do you have to offer? So that if a student, like Ramya said, I would like this, we could go to our speakers bureau and keep a pool of people, because whenever a situation comes up, we're then chasing after it.
I feel like it would be good, especially for like most of the seniors that going to college, they don't know what they want to major in. I feel like that's also really great for them.
Right.
So
And we've always said, like, sometimes you know what subjects you like, but you don't know
Mhm.
what career may be associated with it. So
Yeah.
if you know you like the sciences, you might go to the lunch and learn sessions that have to do with science, and meet somebody who works in a research lab. And when you hear what they actually do, you might say, that's definitely for me, or that's so not for me.
Mhm.
So that's what the whole idea is.
Very good.
So that is one of our district improvement goals. Another,
Excellent.
and I won't belabor this one because we just talked about the technology plan. You're going to be seeing it back at the next meeting. But we have a new 5-year technology plan that you're gonna be receiving an update on twice a year, and we're gonna be together carefully monitoring and discussing the technology plan. So that has to be an important goal for me. So you'll be seeing the improved version of the technology plan at the next meeting. So while I'm talking about the technology plan, rather than wait to other matters, I wouldn't mind taking this opportunity to thank 4 people from the community that came forward and met with our central office team, which is Amy, Bill, Paul Bortolotti, and I, last Tuesday night to look at our plan and give us some community input. And those people were Pete Crockta, Mike Tescucci, Christine Lathrop, and Steve Conley. So they took a couple of hours, actually, out of their weekday evening to come and give us advice, and I think we actually may keep them in our wheelhouse for future
Great.
endeavors. So that's an important goal for me and for the committee jointly. The 5th goal is to expand outreach and communication to community groups and other constituents to build support for the public schools. And it doesn't have to necessarily just relate to STEM, it's in some other ways as well. And to engage in interested parties in school district goals. Specifically, my goal for this year is to conduct 5 new outreach activities. So not just stop at ongoing meetings with Inventus, but what are my other 4? And I'll be coming back to you about that. And then 6, one of the most important aspects of the superintendent's job is to review all aspects of staffing and efficiencies across all operations departments to ensure that the school budget addresses the needs of the district while also being cost-effective. So you can see that we're curious people, and we're full of ideas about what we want to do to improve opportunities for students, but we also want at the same time to say, are there any other areas that we could do things a little bit differently so that we can accomplish some of our goals without necessarily always adding. So that's what we're going to really focus on this year.
Excellent.
More focus.
You have a busy year ahead of you, Madame.
As always, but it's good. It's good. So I
It's a
do
good
need,
busy,
actually, after if you have any other tips or discussion, I do need a vote to accept my goals, and then I proceed with the goals.
Any further discussion? Steve, any thoughts?
No, this is, do you need anything to add in here for your professional development? Would you like
No,
that
because
we
you're
could
pretty
help you with?
supportive, and I do go,
And I'm
the
not implying
technology-
anything, I'm
No,
just saying,
no,
is there
that's
anything
great.
that you need, you know?
yes, thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
The technology plan, I can't speak probably about this enough, because the technology plan is really, really important to us, because it's the first time that we've had one that speaks to its role in the educational process. So we have a more fully fleshed out tech plan. Amy and I have been going to a tech conference every year, which is the only way really we learn about what's happening nationally and what do we really need to do, because all the answers for technology or anything are not all in the town of Foxborough.
International.
And at this point, it's really international. So one of the things that I'm going to try to do this year is all of our principals are going to try to have at least one goal that's technology related. And this is the one year, since the tech plan is new, that I am working hard on seeing if I can find a way to have all of our administrators participate in real high-end educational technology learning. So I'll be coming back to you later, but that is something that Amy and I are working on. It's not something that would happen all the time, but it is something that needs to happen this year so that we're all on the same page and we're all learning together, so.
So how could the committee help you do that?
Oh, I just want to talk about it. No.
Oh, okay.
I think you'll.
Well, I mean, you know,
I
it
think that-
could be money well spent.
Budget,
I
yeah.
mean, you know.
Yes. So I don't think we need to move anything around, just know in advance that that's an area we're working on, that we may spend a little bit more on administrator professional development in the area of technology this year, kind of like a bubble out for this year, and then it would probably resume after that. So we're looking at that this year. But we also have some grant money. We have some Title IIA grant money that is to be used for that purpose, administrative professional development. So we may look at cobbling some things together, but we just started talking, Amy and I just started talking about that a couple of weeks ago, that this is the year, and the first year of the new tech plan, to make sure that everybody has as much PD in that area as we can, so that we can all be leaders.
Right, and it helps with you with adoption across the
does.
fruited plain. All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
Well,
Deb, I'm sorry, go ahead, Bev.
No. Go ahead before.
No call-out specific activity around the new teacher evaluation system.
Curiously enough, I was going to keep a goal with that, but it seemed maybe unnecessary because we still have our implementation team. This will be the third year that we'll continue to meet. We meet twice a month. We just saw them last Thursday. And this will probably be the third year that that group stays together. So we have a dozen teachers and 6 administrators. And in the first year, we planned for the rollout of the educator evaluation tool. Last year, we monitored the implementation. We'll continue to do it this year in year 2, and then I think we'll be okay. So we're still working out some glitches, but I have to give our staff credit because it's still a lot of hard work, but people are just digging down and learning together and getting the job done. So we didn't see anything new, so it felt. In fact, I even asked Amy for input on that. It just felt to me like if I put to continue to support,
Yep.
there were some other things that I could work on more rigorously, I think.
Good. Okay.
And vigorously.
Because you're doing that anyway, we have to. do the other
Right.
piece.
So we talked about that. We said, well, it's kind of going anyway, so what's my goal?
It's well-oiled and running well. Great.
Well, just to summarize, there's a little something here for everyone, I think. Simplicity, clarity, and priority, authentic literacy, advanced learning, enrichment and challenge, growth plan for STEM, business tech ed, technology plan review twice a year, new community outreach. A highly rated superintendent, should have an aggressive plan, right? Because she can do so much. I would say this counts.
This counts.
I would
Well,
say
and
this
you
counts.
got the last one, the budget
Number
cost
6.
No,
effectiveness.
excuse me.
So don't forget that.
Budget.
Look at that.
Oh, that's a given.
It's my favorite part of the whole goal. No, I'm just kidding.
Continued cost effectiveness.
Well, unless we wanted to wait for our chairman, I'd like to move that we vote on the goals and as written, for our superintendent to move forward and help her keep running our fine school system.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion?
I'll third that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Excellent.
Good job.
Good
Well
job,
thought out.
Debbie.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
I do want to say, our goal-setting retreat this summer was really helpful to me because as a collective group, we really talked about some new things and what do we all want to work harder on. So that actually helped me a lot.
Well, and I think, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking as you were going through that, you actually, I think, have thoughtfully reflected those requests from us into your plans, so thank you for doing that.
It'll be a good year.
Well, we're off to a good start.
We're off to a great start, actually, really great, but students, staff, everybody's got their heads down and working hard. It's been pretty quiet.
All right, so we included our agenda item about growth plan for STEM and business tech ed in that discussion, I assume.
Yes.
So we're on to enrollment update.
We are. So annually, we include the October 1st, which is what the Department of Ed counts as our official enrollment. So we currently have 2,772 students who are considered part of the Foxborough Public Schools at this time.
Any observations or comments or thoughts or?
I would say from 5th grade down to kindergarten can be, a little bit, well, it's 187, so it's right in the ballpark, because we do get a few more enrollments in 1st grade, so that's kind of in keeping. So kindergarten through 5th, you can see we're at anywhere between 192 and 200, pretty consistent numbers except for one group, but basically they're within 15 students, so that seems to be pretty consistent, but smaller. Then you'll see grades 6 through 12, which run anywhere from 200 to 229. So we don't have wide variance in our class sizes, but they seem to, be staying the same as the groups go up. It'll be really interesting to see what happens next year for 1st grade, because we typically do get more. So if we're already at 187, we'll get into the 190s, which is where the other groups are, but probably nothing drastic. So our population doesn't shift a lot, just shifts a little.
Any questions about the enrollment update? I have one, Deb. A theme that we touch on from time to time is the notion that I don't hear as often anymore, that students may want to leave Foxborough for their high school years to find a better opportunity. And I can't imagine the need for that, especially with all of the work you and Amy and everyone else has done. I think, this whole meeting tonight has featured a lot of examples of a lot of very good things going on. But if I read this, am I reading it right to say that this doesn't show that students are leaving the district?
No, in fact,
I mean, grade 8, for example, says 222 students, and grade 9 says 224.
Right.
So are we finding that?
I don't know the number for last year, but I will bring that back. That would have been a good thing to bring.
At the high school, you mean?
Well, no, the
Or
number for,
total?
how many students leave to go to high school somewhere else. And there are, rightly so, families who choose a religious education for their high school student, and whatever reason they pick is every family has to make their own decision. We definitely believe in that. But we have fewer than, we usually have somewhere about 15, 17 students who may choose that. I don't know what the number is, but not a large percentage. And sometimes families choose to send their child where they went to school, so sometimes it's about legacy, and sometimes it's about religion, and sometimes it's about a sports team we might not offer. So there's a variety of reasons that people might feel that another high school is a better fit. Sometimes it relates to the size of the high school community, although we're a fairly medium-sized high school. So I can bring that number back if you would like that, but we don't see large numbers of students going elsewhere.
And this would-
There will always be some, and rightly so.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
And we still enjoy that remarkable dropout rate that's admirable.
Yes, we're not losing children, so that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So the dropout rate has to do with kids who enter at grade 9, whether they do the Department of Ed tracks a 4-year graduation rate and a 5, and how many students are we actually losing along the way, and we had like a 99% retention rate. So
Yeah.
that just goes to show the work the high school's doing to really get to know every student and make sure that we don't have a child that falls through the cracks.
And the array of programs that we're offering only
Right.
continues to increase.
Right.
So, and you've always emphasized that students have different interests and strengths in different areas, and we want to reach out to all of them with as many offerings as we can, and I think we do that.
We also offer, which is little-known, therapeutic programs at the high school and things for, other opportunities in a smaller setting for students who, may have issues that they can't operate as efficiently as they would like to in the general population in high school. So we have a lot of specialized programs that seem to be working as well, so kudos to that.
Very good. Anything else on this topic? So, other matters?
I always have a few. One that is up for committee discussion is, thanks to Ms. Lord, it came to my attention that the next school committee meeting on November 4th is the same date as the special town meeting, which will be right in the auditorium. So I'd open it up for the committee to discuss.
Well, I think as this has come to light, I think a couple of the thoughts have been to extend a different meeting in November to make up for what we would lose if we cancel that meeting, or we can reschedule to a different Monday and hold a different meeting on a different Monday to replace that one. I don't know if Katie has an opinion. I'd certainly be interested in the consensus of the committee.
There aren't too many other Mondays,
No.
are there?
We're currently scheduled to meet on the 18th. We're meeting, I believe, with the Board of Selectmen in our joint meeting the prior week on
The 12th.
Tuesday, the 12th.
Correct.
That Monday, the 11th, is Veterans Day, which is a holiday and the schools are closed. So I don't think we should meet then. That leaves us with the 25th of November, which I'm perfectly fine with meeting then. Our other option, I guess, could possibly be to, I don't know, and again, we'd have to ask Katie, if we could start our meeting on the 18th, perhaps half an hour earlier in order to accommodate the amount of information that I know we're gonna have to go over, given some of the topics we've already discussed today that will be presented at that meeting. That was just one thought I had.
Good thought, yeah.
Yeah, so to give you a heads up, you have MCAS Part 2.
Yeah.
You have the elementary school improvement plans. I believe elementary is first, or second, or I think it's elementary, school improvement plans. And not for a lot of discussion, but the new version of the tech plan will be in there just to see if you have any remaining questions. So it would be a meeting, but it's doable.
Yeah.
Because as you said, the only other option, if you want to stick to the Monday meeting schedule, is the last Monday in November. And then you have the first Monday of December as a school committee meeting. So you
Right.
basically
We would
have
have
a
3
meeting
weeks,
3
yeah.
Mondays in a row. Just want to,
Well, the week of the 25th is also
Thanksgiving.
My sister's birthday and Thanksgiving, yeah. So.
Well, I eat near your sister's
No,
birthday.
let's not.
Some of us are cooking for Thanksgiving,
I have
but
to
we're
do it in
willing to
that
have a
order.
meeting if that's what you want.
I would prefer to have one long meeting
Me too.
and keep it at, if we start changing meetings, people seriously are very kind of committed to the cycle and are pre-published. So if we could work out family-wise, I would prefer to see one long meeting on the 18th. And we'll just make it as efficient as we can.
I'm fine with that.
Steve, you're okay with that?
I am good with that. Thank you.
I'm okay with that too. So I think that's our plan, and unless Katie objects, which I
Well,
wouldn't
it's
expect.
it would be 4-1.
Yeah, yeah. So let's
4-1.
plan to,
So she can come.
let's plan to go that route. And there may be some topics that you might be able to defer to the December meeting and not,
Yeah.
Right.
so you can take a look at that. But we can be prepared to have a lengthier meeting.
I think it'll be okay, since the two meaty things will be the school improvement plans and the MCAS. I think those would be the big discussion items, and it would make a long meeting, but not an impossibly long meeting, you know.
Well, and you and
Start
Katie can
earlier.
discuss Tina's idea of whether an earlier start makes any sense.
Sure.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Depending
Let's take
on
a
what
look at how
comes up
much is on the
between
agenda.
now and then, if there's anything else that needs to be
I
added
don't think we
in.
need to vote on that, because we've already got the meeting on the 18th. This is
So
just
we
a
will not be having a
cancellation of the
meeting,
4th.
we'll cancel the meeting on the 4th. So we'll make sure, Janet, we'll make sure that gets posted on the town and our website. So, I mean, do you ever see Colleen in school, or should we?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so there's no meeting on November 4th?
Okay.
Just see you on
Because
the
we
18th.
have to go to, we
Okay.
need to be at the special town meeting.
Very good, thank you.
And then, as Tina mentioned, on November 12th, which is the Tuesday, the email I sent around, joint meeting with the Board of Selectmen and the school committee to hear the revenue forecast for FY15. And that usually takes place on the night of a selectmen's meeting, and now they're meeting here, so it will be here on November 12th, Tuesday. And we don't have a time on the agenda yet, but it's usually first up, so I'd just say 7 o'clock. People should count on 7 o'clock unless you hear otherwise. And the open house at Foxborough High School last Thursday was wonderful. I
I
want
was-
to commend Ms. Myers-Packler for having an open house. I don't think we've had when we were trying to think back, and we think it was about 10 years ago. So there was a great turnout.
I was
I thoroughly
very
enjoyed myself, as did you.
I was so excited when I drove into the driveway and saw the amount of cars parked.
It's a great turnout.
Good.
And we
Really.
had a lot of positive parent comments. Just nice to put a face with a name when your high school students coming home, you know, before you get to the parent conferences in November, to be able to know a little bit about the school and where you're going. And of course, we had a lot of students there helping out with directions, with helping parents get their child's schedule. It's great. So thanks to the high school administrators and
Right,
teachers.
and the teachers were very excited. There were parents that oftentimes don't come out, that chose to come
It's a
out
great turnout.
and to meet them.
So I would like to thank the high school faculty for taking on an extra night that they haven't,
And they
they haven't done
absolutely
before,
need
and it was
thanks for
so
that.
well received. So, thank you, school faculty.
And if appropriate, maybe Deb, you could send a note to the high school staff to let them know we noted
Truly
it, noted and
appreciate
appreciated that. Because I did hear positive things from the community about it. Thank you.
And I just have the one last thing I mentioned to you before. I know a lot of us have been eagerly anticipating tonight's HBO premiere of Life According to Sam, one of our students that we all know, Sam Burns. So I thought he wouldn't mind if I said his name, or his parents wouldn't mind, because tonight's a big night. And the premiere of his film locally was last Saturday. He's been on Katie Couric. But what a lot of people don't know is that Sam is also a speaker at the TEDx Mid-Atlantic Conference this Friday in Washington, D.C. So that conference, I just online, the TEDx Mid-Atlantic, a lot of people have heard of the TEDx conference.
TEDx?
Heard a lot of TEDx. And it showcases, for this one, the Mid-Atlantic, the theme is Start Now. It showcases the stories of people who have led by example or have had ideas that can help us reframe the most intractable problems in new and imaginative ways. So it's just filled with really inspiring, motivational people, and they decide on their speakers. And so Sam is one of the 50 speakers at this Friday, Saturday TEDx conference, and his is Friday. So we're waiting to see if we can
This
find the time.
coming Friday?
But it's 8 a.m. Friday through 8 p.m. Saturday, so it's a 2-day, almost continuous speaker conference. So if we can figure out the time that he's speaking, we'd like to live stream it into the high school, but we're just not sure if it's during the school day. So waiting to find out, but he is having a bang-up month in October, so kudos
We know
to
Sam, he's gonna steal that show. Absolutely, he'll be the best speaker there.
So he's everywhere doing everything.
That's awesome.
Geez, maybe we should, if Sam's not exhausted yet, maybe we should feature him at some point as a teaching and learning highlight in these experiences, like speaking at a national conference. It's unbelievable.
I don't personally know anyone that's
Unbelievable.
spoken at one of the TEDx conferences, but now I will. So.
Good for him.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea, Bruce.
And I think you can watch it live streaming, so anybody can go to TEDx, if you just Google it, TED with an X, and you can watch.
TEDx?
Yes, so you can live stream it, so anytime Friday or Saturday, you can go through the internet to watch the TEDx conference. That's the whole idea of it, it's just for the ideas. We just don't know the time, so if I know the time, I'll let you know, but it is a live streamed event.
Wow.
Excellent.
Pretty exciting.
And Bruce, you mentioned he was on
I believe he was
radio.
on, well, he was on the radio this
Oh,
morning.
he was, I heard him.
Dennis
Yes.
Really?
He was on
Where-
with,
which-
Was he really?
Dennis and Callahan
Whiz.
at 7 o'clock this morning.
And he was incredibly articulate. I mean, Sam always is. I don't know how
I
he
believe
does
my
it.
husband may have said they should hire him as a sportscaster. This morning.
Well, the 3 adults on the program made the comment that he was far more articulate than any of those adults are.
The 3 adults commented
Yes,
it.
that's what they said.
I loved it.
I'm glad they recognize an expert among them.
That's right. Anything else on your list, Deb?
That would be about it.
Bevy?
That's it.
I have one thing.
Tina?
I just wanted to mention, I know Allison Mello touched on it in her remarks during the math curriculum overview that they gave at our last meeting, but I got an email from my son's math teacher on Sunday night reminding us that the Ahern Parent Math Night is Wednesday, November 6th from 6 to 7. Since we're not having a meeting on November 4th, I wanted to make sure I mentioned it. It's in room 226, and this is open to everyone who has a child at the middle school who wants to learn more about the online resources in our new math program. So all they ask is that you RSVP by November 4th to it's ahernmathchallenge@gmail.com with your name, your child's grade level, and their math teacher, I guess so they know how many people to expect. But it sounds like a great opportunity for parents to learn about the math technology, to learn about what's available online, and how best to help their child. So it's another way.
There's an elementary math parent night as well.
That's right. That's
So
right. I
check
got
your,
that one.
check your child's school calendar online at foxborough.k12.ma.us.
It is coming up though, the elementary math night. I don't know offhand when that one is, but I had an email on this one.
There's so much on the school calendar, I can't even
I know.
memorize it.
But hopefully they'll have a good turnout.
I've already RSVP'd for that. I'll probably need so much help it's not even funny. But also a shout out to the Ahern School. They had a really nice induction ceremony for this year's school council, and I was very impressed by at least the administrative team. They were very, comfortable in front of a big room full of people. I was really impressed at what we have on the horizon for our future school leaders. And it was a nice job and very nice to see them all do it.
Great. Anybody else? The only thing I had was, news was coming out tonight about an unfortunate situation in a Nevada school earlier today, so I just wanted to say that our thoughts and prayers and wishes are with them as more information comes out.
Absolutely.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.